Lisa,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Been a while.
Yeah. I think it was April.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
It was April.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, you're probably busy too. How are things on your end?
They're good. They're good. Actually, some new developments. I'm going to hire somebody to help with Mom
Are you?
and get a job outside of the house so we have a little time apart.
Okay. So I'm just curious. Is she in good physical health?
She's relatively, she's 83. She can walk still. And her, she can communicate pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But when I take her for a walk, she'll go about 5 yards and stop and catch her breath, and then 5 yards and then catch her breath, and then it's kind of like pulling teeth.
So does she have a lung condition?
Well, she smoked for 63 years. Finally got her to quit about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm sure that complicates it. Sometimes she seems to have a little bit of wheezing, but doctors can't find anything wrong. So
Okay. So
yeah.
that's good news that she quit because boy oh boy,
I know.
if you can get somebody to quit, you mean she quit when she was 81.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
I know.
Is there a glare, just before we go any further, is there a glare? I like my glasses on a little bit, I'm thinking, and is there a glare? Can you see me?
I can see you. Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. So yeah. So I guess we'll go through your whole story, huh?
Okay.
So tell us, now you cared for both of your parents, right?
Okay, so my dad we'll go back to the beginning. This is right after the holidays of 2007. In January, February, March of 2008. That's when everything started to unravel.
Uh-huh.
So my mom she was having like a rotator problem with her shoulder.
Yep.
She went for, I have to think back here, I think it was not an x-ray, but a scan of some type. And the scan looked at the shoulder, but it happened to go a little low. And they noticed something wrong with her kidney.
Wow.
So if she had never had this rotator cuff scan, she would never have found out she had a tumor on her kidney.
Interesting.
So this was just by accident, by default. She found out she had a tumor on her kidney. This was like January, February of 2008, and it was serious, and they scheduled her for surgery as soon as possible in March of 2008.
Okay.
So she was actually diagnosed with cancer first, my dad later. And I think what happened was, this is interesting, you talk about your mom smoking. My dad had been a smoker and had quit years prior to my mom's diagnosis of cancer.
Yep.
And I'll never know the truth about this, but I think the stress from my mom's cancer diagnosis started him smoking again.
Wow.
I think that's what happened. So my mom had the surgery in March of 2008. They did a nephrectomy. They removed the right kidney, and the surgery went well. The surgeon talked to me and said he really felt like they got it all. They removed the whole kidney, and they didn't feel that it had metastasized to any cells outside the bed of the kidney there. So we met with the oncologist. The oncologist recommended that we not do any chemotherapy or radiation because they felt that they had removed it all. So now hindsight's 2020. I kind of think, in my mind, and I'm not a doctor, that we should have preventatively just done some treatment around that area of the bed of the kidney where they removed the kidney, just as a precautionary measure. I feel like we should have done some of that, but back then, what did I know?
Did you at that time? I'm forgetting. Were you at that time yet interested in health and diet?
A little bit. I've always been.
Yeah.
But not anywhere close to the extent that I am today, and it's in large part because of what happened with my parents.
Okay. And
So
and your parents, would you say your parents were pretty much conventional eaters, like dad?
Standard American diet.
Yeah.
My mom's influence was German, so there were a lot of the German Pennsylvania Dutch foods, which are heavy: meatloaf, mashed potatoes and gravy.
Bratwurst.
Well, she wasn't German. We didn't do a lot of the German foods, but still heavy.
Yeah.
In this area, there's a Pennsylvania Dutch influence, so a lot of the heavier. Every meal had to have meat.
Potatoes with butter, that sort of thing. Yeah.
A lot of butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my dad was. From our last interview, my dad was Italian, so then
Right.
on that side there was pasta, but pasta always had a meat sauce.
Yeah.
You know, meatballs, sausage, pork.
Right.
So, and then a roasted chicken usually in the center of the table. So, you know, I had both sides of it, and we were kind of standard American diet with German and Italian influence. But I did not grow up in a vegetarian, vegan household. I mean, far from it.
Right.
So
So she got the kidney removed, and then at the time they were like, you don't need any chemo, but I guess it came back. That was what?
Well, they did a PET scan, which scans your whole body, and they from that scan they can tell whether this cancer has spread to any other spots. And it's really the irony of this, Paul. She got her scan. They told her that she was cancer free. We were in the parking lot. I mean, we were both in tears. We come out of the building. We hugged. We cried. We were just so thrilled that she was told she was cancer free and she was going to be okay. She should get on with her life and go about the business of living her life.
Yeah.
So that was first week of May, and her nephrectomy was the end of March. So we were relieved, elated. But my dad at the same time was starting to have symptoms of weakness, tired, difficulty breathing. So literally a week later, I was told by his family physician, your father has a 2.5-inch tumor on his right lung, and his condition is grave. Prepare for him to die.
Jesus, man.
So I literally 1 week was told my mom was going to live, have a full life, and 7 days later I was told at the same building, no, I'm sorry, not at the same building, scratch that. His family physician, this is a different office. There's so much that happened, it's hard to actually remember all this.
Sure.
When I go back, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from his family doctor who told me, your dad's not going to live, like, I think he said maybe a month. So my dad was diagnosed the day after Mother's Day, and he died 17 days later on May 29th.
Wow. What do you think of, I mean, in this case, it sounds like it was maybe beneficial to have the doctor make that pronouncement, because maybe to some degree it helped you prepare psychologically. But, you know, you so often hear of doctors making these pronouncements like you've got a year to live, you've got 6 months to live, and it's not accurate. What's your take on that?
Okay, I have mixed feelings about it. I have a friend, I haven't been in touch with her for years, but she was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4, lung. And she told me back when we were closer years ago, you know, we just got busy, our kids were young at the time, and we spent a lot of time together. And you know how your friendships evolve and change over the years. So I haven't been in touch with her, but I remember back when she was diagnosed, which would have been around 2003, 2004. She said she did not want to know her prognosis. She knew she had stage 4 lung cancer. She didn't want to know how long. She didn't believe in that. I guess it would be too pessimistic, and she was an optimist. She didn't want to know. She wanted to fight it full force, and I'm pretty sure she's still living, and that was 2004, so here we are, that's like 11, 12 years later.
Yeah, that's great.
She did not want to know, and I respect that. Some people want to know, And I respect that too. I don't know how I would feel if I were diagnosed, if I would want to know or not. Do you know what you would do?
Well, you know, in your case with your dad, it was like a good thing because maybe it helped. I mean, 17 days, that's no time at all, but maybe it helped you start to get psychologically ready. But my opinion is that more often than not, when doctors make these pronouncements, people believe them, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, that will be a totally different outcome than somebody who says, well, you do have this problem, but if you radically change some things, you might be able to reverse what's happening. So I mean, it has a huge effect on what the person does. If you tell them you're going to die in 6 months, and they start programming themselves that way, they could even help bring it about. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. And I guess the other thing I want to say is, since my mom had this cancer, and then my dad died suddenly, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story. But since all this happened, I now look at medicine outside the box. So how they went about their treatment with just conventional chemotherapy and radiation, I do respect that to a certain extent. But since their sicknesses, their illnesses, and their passing, I now have a new respect for traditional medicine with the addition of alternative medicine and the difference with diet and everything that goes along with that. So I might want to know, but at the same time, I would take that not too seriously, because I would be pursuing alternative medicine myself.
I like that.
And then I would take what the doctors would tell me with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I like that you're not, throwing out conventional medicine. So like, yeah, it's a balanced approach.
Yes, but I didn't know that back then.
Yeah, because in cases probably like your dad, where it was very unlikely you're going to be able to do anything to reverse that in that shorter period of time, at least he had the highest care possible, where they could make it as as less hellish as possible.
Yeah, and I tell you that basically it was 3 weeks. That 3 weeks, I'm so glad for him. There was no hope. He had a form of cancer on the lung that is a direct result of cigarette smoking.
Uh-huh.
The doctor did tell me, the oncologist said, sometimes there's a question with this form of lung cancer, there's no question. And I get the two confused, Paul. One is called small cell, and one is called non-small. I want to say don't hold me to this, but I believe he had non-small cell cancer, and the form that he had grows so rapidly that by the time they diagnose it, most times it's just you have to keep the person as comfortable as possible. I'm not saying it's impossible to cure them, but almost impossible to cure them. So that 3 weeks, our focus was to keep him comfortable, keep him as pain-free as possible, make his last 3 weeks as good as you could, given what he was dealing with.
And I think you told me, but how old was he?
He died when he was 73.
And had you been caring for him prior to that diagnosis?
Well, it happened so quick that literally the end of April, he was doing his normal routine. He was a gardener. He was an outdoor guy, so he'd be cutting the grass. He planted a tree. He planted his garden. I mean, he was doing his normal routine. It was only the last 3 weeks that he wasn't functioning normal. And it was only the last, I'd say, week and a half that he was bedridden. And by then we had hospice. I want to tell you, we had hospice in the home.
Okay, yeah. So he and your mom still lived in their own home, and okay, but when your mom, but I know, so now your mom, well, that must have been just emotionally wrenching to see your dad go that quick. I mean, what a shock. But then with your mom, how was she affected by his passing? Because they were married like many, many years, right?
Yes. In
So,
fact, they were coming up on they were a year or two shy of their 50th anniversary. And before all this happened in 2008, I said to my husband, I said, we need to plan a 50th wedding anniversary party. And at that time, I thought, they'd both be alive and we'd be celebrating their 50th anniversary. So this all happened so quickly, Paul, I could barely wrap my head around it.
yeah. How did your dad know that? Did he accept the fact that he was passing, and how did he handle that?
Wow. You know what? When he hung up the phone, I'd gotten the call first at my house from the doctor that told me his condition was grave and I should prepare for his death. He got the call, I don't know, right before I did or right after I did at his house. Our homes are about 6-7 miles apart. He got the phone call, and when he hung up the phone, my mom later told me, he just hung up the phone and said, wow, I didn't know it was this bad.
Gee whiz.
And after he said that, he went into a depression, I'll call it a depression, and never talked about his diagnosis. So from that time until he passed, he didn't talk much. I remember one day I was sitting, he was kind of laying on the bed, and we were toward the end of the bed. I was sitting in a chair, and I'd gotten some cards in the mail. We were looking at the cards. We would get, when you have this kind of thing happen, people come in droves.
Yeah.
They bring food to the house, and they send cards, and they call, and, you almost don't know what to do because you're dealing with the person who's sick at the same time that you're getting this influx of information from people, and you're trying to deal with it all. It's overwhelming. So I was sitting there reading the cards to him, and he said something to the effect of, and he could barely talk because of his breathing, but he said, don't focus on this bad time here. Think about the good days, the good times.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So at that point, he knew he was dying.
Wow. Intense. So he passed, and then now I forget? Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child, Paul.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got the whole responsibility. So you must have helped your mom with the funeral, right?
So it was my mom and I and my husband, the three of us, took care of his funeral. And it was a beautiful service. One thing I have to tell you, my father never liked wearing business suits. A suit and a tie.
I like him already.
No, he couldn't stand it. So I was getting a shower, and I was getting out of the shower. My parents had a small ranch home. They were in the back bedroom, and I was getting a shower, and I was getting dressed and everything in the bathroom. And I heard them in the back bedroom trying to pick out which suit to, have him wear for the funeral. And I said, oh, no. He hated a suit and a tie. Don't you dare do that to him. What we're going to do is we're going to dress him. He was a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
Oh, great. That's
Ever
awesome,
since
Lisa.
he had been little, like 6 or 7. They had a newspaper route. He and his buddy, they got into sports. Somehow they got attached to the St. Louis Cardinals. I forget the story. But the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series 2006. And that Christmas, I bought him a baseball cap, and I bought him a nice turtleneck with the St. Louis Cardinals and a sweat, a bunch of memorabilia.
Yeah.
So I said, we're going to dress him in red, in Cardinals memorabilia, in that style of clothing. And
that's so great, Lisa.
Yeah. And his favorite player was Stan Musial.
Okay, yep.
And so we had in the casket, so he was dressed in all Cardinal, I think he had khakis on, but a red turtleneck and a sweatshirt that was Cardinals. And then in the corner of the casket, we had baseball memorabilia, especially Stan Musial. So that was, and my husband and my mom, they agreed. They said, yeah, that's a great idea.
What's so cool about that, Lisa, is maybe most people know this, but it's like, funerals are really not for the people that have died. Funerals are for those of us left behind. And what's so great about what you did is it just humanizes the whole thing, so it doesn't have to be this kind of serious, heavy thing, and helps you focus on the good times. It's beautiful.
And you know what happened? He had a bunch of old Italian buddies that live in Hershey. Hershey, Chocolate Town.
Yeah.
So that's where my dad was from. I mean, Hershey used to be in the 50s and 60s all Italian. Okay? So
Yeah.
you can picture at the funeral home in Hershey, there is the funeral set up, with the casket at the front, and people come up front and go past the casket and pray. My dad was Catholic, so they had, people would sit down and, do the sign of the cross, and they would, do their prayers. All these old Italian guys coming past the casket saying, "Hey, look at Paulie. Oh my gosh, that's great. He's wearing his Cardinals, Cardinal stuff." They loved it.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I imagine Italians do a good funeral. I know, I'm of Irish descent, and the Irish throw a pretty mean funeral.
The Irish, I think, have a speed. I'm gonna hand it to you, Paul. Yeah.
The wonders of suppressing emotion with alcohol.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Well,
I'm sorry, Paul. Hold on a second. I gotta silence my phone.
Sure.
There we go. Got it.
Well, that's so cool. I mean, that it sounds like you turned it into as positive a thing as you could, and then
as much as we could do it, we put together, a slideshow with pictures from, way back, and then, I told you about how he was dressed. I did his eulogy actually, so it was a really nice service. You're almost in shock when someone dies that suddenly, but we did the best we could.
Yeah. And then tell me what happened with your mom, because I know ultimately you became her caretaker, right? So
yes.
So you guys had this moment of elation with her, then you go to the depths again with your dad, and then how long after did it become apparent that your mom was not, I mean, this must have hit her pretty hard. Did the emotional...
She was devastated when my dad died. And this was May of 2008. So that whole summer, she was considered to be cancer-free, June, July, August. But she said to me on more than one occasion, I can feel that she'd point to her right side. She'd say, something's not right. I can feel that the cancer's back. Oh, and I would say to her, Mom, you're just worried because Dad died. You're going to be fine. I would tease her. You're going to be around forever to be like a pain to me. You're going to drive me insane. Okay? Like, trust me. You're going to be around forever driving me nuts. So you're just worried. Put it out. I kept telling her, put it out of your mind. You're going to be okay. You're just worried. She knew, though. So that summer went by, and it was the fall of 2008, which would have been around October. They check them pretty close when you have kidney cancer. I guess most likely place for it to spread is the bladder. So they do what's called a cystoscopy. A cystoscopy checks your bladder to make sure you're okay. So she had 2 tests done. She had a scan and she had a cystoscopy. We went in to see her doctor, her kidney specialist, and he pulled me aside when she was in the dressing room. And he said, your mom's cystoscopy is fine, but her scan shows that it has spread to her liver.
Oh, man.
So
now her age at this time, how many years younger than your husband, than your dad was she?
So I'm trying to think now. September. Okay. She was 71.
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
They're pretty close, a couple years apart. Yeah.
So then it gets confirmed that her fears are true, and she up to this point is still living in the house that she lived in with your dad,
yes.
Right?
She's still living in her house, my childhood home, and what she's doing is really pretty much cleaning through. She knew she wasn't going to live. She knew in her gut something wasn't right. Even though the doctors were telling her she was cancer-free, move on with your life, you're fine. She just knew she wasn't fine. So she was spending all of her time cleaning out the house, getting the house ready, because she felt she was going to die, and she didn't want to stick my husband and I with that.
Wow, that kind of stuff, man. That just blows you away. She doesn't want to be a burden. That's incredible, man.
So I'll never forget this. It's so sad, Paul. I don't even know if I can tell you. She comes out of the dressing room, and the surgeon says to her, and she's smiling. She's got this very, very happy glow to her face. That's the last time I saw her smile. I mean, really smile. The doctor said to her, I watched her countenance as he delivered this death sentence.
Yeah.
He said, your cystoscopy is fine, but the scan shows that the cancer has spread to the liver. And her whole expression changed. My mother's extremely smart. She knew what that meant. She was really smart. She graduated from high school when she was 15. They had skipped her 3 grades.
Wow.
Yeah. From a school that was high academic, Hershey still is, very high academic standards. She was at the time, and probably might still be, the youngest person to ever have graduated from Hershey High School. So, super smart lady. She knew on an intellectual level, and she knew in her gut that her time was coming to an end.
Wow. So then what happened, Lisa? Did she gradually decline and then?
Well, that was late October when she was delivered this really bad news, and she was given 6 months to live. And at that point, actually my husband suggested she should not live in that house. She should come and live with us.
That's great. That's great.
So I agreed, and I said, we talked to her, and I said, look, you're not going to spend, the doctors say 6 months. It could be 4 months, 6 months, it could be a year. Whatever time you have left, you're not going to spend it in your house cleaning out, and, you're not going to do that. You're going to move in with us, and you're going to spend whatever time you have left with us. And we'll take care of the house when you pass, we'll take care of it.
That's cool, Lisa. Yeah. So
she got ready. We set up a room for her, a bedroom on the first floor, so that she could have a place. We knew at some point she would not be able to. We live in a 2-story home. We knew she wouldn't be able to do the stairs at some point. So we set up a bedroom, and she had a nice bed and a dresser for her clothing and everything. We set up the space on the first floor. We also have fortunately, we have a full bathroom on our first floor off of our kitchen. So she had a bathroom that she could access. She had a bedroom. The irony was she never wanted to sleep in the bedroom. She wanted to be with us in the living room, where, family room where you're always at, and in the kitchen where you're always at. And then we have a sunroom, and she had a couch, and she would sleep there because she said she was comfortable and she wanted to be around everyone. So the bedroom that I set up, which was beautiful, she never wanted it. She used it, but she didn't use it a lot.
What's so cool about that, Lisa, is that, not only, of course, were you caring for her while this illness is progressing, but she's had her husband pass, who she's been with for 48 years or whatever. So, and I think that's really hard for a lot of folks if they've been married to someone for so many years and then they're all of a sudden alone. And so you gave her this company, in addition to, caring for her while the illness progressed. So, that's beautiful, beautiful.
She missed him terribly, and I think she knew, because she was really smart intellectually, that her time was really coming to an end. But she also knew in her gut and internally, she just had a feeling that she was not going to be able to conquer this.
Yeah, yeah. So had you, prior to this, had any experience with caring for elderly or sick people?
A little bit, Paul. Never with anyone this close to me. my grandfather, my mom's dad, had colon cancer. He died of colon cancer. But I was younger, and I was around a little bit not like this.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know if I mentioned in our other interview, I actually have 5 aunts that have died of cancer. 5. One died of breast cancer when I was very young, so I don't remember a lot about that.
Mm-hmm.
One died of a brain tumor, and she went really quick, and she had 4 children, so I knew she was sick and passing, but I didn't see a lot because I wasn't her caretaker.
Yeah.
She had 4 children, and they were caring for her. And then I had an aunt who died of lung cancer, also a smoker, but again, she had caretakers, so I saw part of it, but I wasn't right in the home every day, you know.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 other aunts. One died of pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
I was pretty close to her, but she went very fast, and she had hospice. And then I had an aunt that I was very close to. She was my godmother. She died of liver cancer. That was the other one that I saw because I was at her home quite a bit. But she had other caretakers. She had hospice, and she had one of her sisters caring for her. This sister was a nurse. So I saw a lot, but never like where I was the primary caretaker.
Yeah. You know, knowing what you know now regarding nutrition and healthy lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
to what degree can you attribute the deaths of all your aunts and your parents to poor nutrition? I mean, obviously with your dad smoking.
Wow. I don't know what the statistic would be. I don't know if it's, well, we'll say it's at least 50%. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and say it's 100%.
Right.
But I'll use this cliche statement, and I think it's really true. You know, our genetics load the gun, but our diet and our lifestyle pull the trigger.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think not all these people, but some of them perhaps could have been saved, or at least had a longer, better quality of life had they been doing the right lifestyle, including, and most importantly, really, really good, clean nutrition.
Yeah, yeah. Did your mom smoke at all?
My mom had been a smoker many, many years prior to all of this, and then quit. I don't think that played a key role in her cancer.
Mm-hmm. All right, so she came to live with you and your husband, and then how long did she stay with you? How long was she?
Well, she was given 6 months. That was late October. Let me think about this. November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. She lived 10 months, almost a year. And for a while, I have to tell you, I thought she was going to beat it. Because I kind of was like thinking she might be one of these people that they give the diagnosis to, and then the person is around 10 years later, because she was going through chemo and radiation 2-3 days a week. You know how most cancer patients look like cancer patients? She did not.
Huh.
She was robust. She hadn't lost any weight.
Her hair didn't fall out?
Well, her hair she did start to lose her hair. That was the only sign. Other than that, you wouldn't know to look at her that she had a cancer diagnosis. She had a very good appetite. After her cancer treatments, we'd go out to eat. I'd let her pick the restaurant, and we'd go out. I wasn't doing a healthy diet then because I went with her to whatever restaurant she picked.
You know,
not the right thing to do.
But I love that, Lisa. That's out of love. And I mean, what are you gonna do? You know, she's got how much time left to live? She loves eating this food. You're gonna try and have her eat lettuce leaves for the last 6 months of her life.
There's a lot of people could say I did the wrong thing, and a lot of people would say what you're saying. You know, I let her enjoy the last 6 months or however long she had, and she loved to go out to eat. Her favorite place was Red Lobster. I know it's not vegan. Sorry, vegan folks. But we would go to, places that she picked, and she would eat and really enjoy we'd have a nice talk and a nice meal together. And
Well, this is the thing with my mom. I mean, this is really one of the few things she has left is eating. And
yes,
she loves restaurants. So and I mean, there's not much other she can do. She can talk. She thinks she can play tennis, but she can play for like a minute and then she has to sit down. So
aw,
so yeah, it's a complicated thing. It's the psychology of it, and just what does love mean in the end? Does it mean being rigid about certain things, or does it mean comforting someone and letting them have a kind of passing with dignity and as much enjoyment as possible?
and I didn't know what I know now about nutrition and diet and lifestyle. I mean, I knew a little, but I got into this really, really heavy after they both passed. So, now I know about the Gerson therapy
Yeah,
and different methods. And I think to myself, what would I have done if I had known then what I know now? Would I
yeah,
have taken her to those restaurants? Would I have flown her to Mexico and had her do carrot juice the last,
right.
year of her life? I don't know what I would do. It's a toss-up. You can't really say.
Right, and you don't even know if she would have gone for it because, I've been into this stuff for a long time, and I used to have these discussions with my dad, who was, very Irish, loved to have parties. He loved eating good food, and he was a heavy drinker, and I I would tell him, you gotta if you want to these long-lived peoples, we hear these cultures who live healthy very long, and he's like, I don't want to eat black bread the rest of my life, so
Yeah.
he had no interest in making any of those changes. So, and then he died. I mean, he lived a full life, but in the end, it was pretty horrible. He gradually got all these complications. He had like a quadruple bypass. He
Oh,
started to get
wow.
some Parkinson's-like symptoms. He was having polyps, I think, in his bladder. He Similar to what your mom was getting, they were examining her for. So it just was, yeah, it was sad to see, and but
How old was he when he passed away?
he was in his early 80s, I think. Yeah.
And when did he die?
Let's see, I want to say, boy, I don't even know. I think it's about 10 years ago.
Okay, so he was quite a bit older than your mom.
He's 10 years older than my mom. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's hard. It's really there's and I don't want to say that people don't feel for you, but unless you've experienced this personally, there's no you can't give an accurate description and a detailed account with the feeling of it until you've gone through it. So you know what it's like.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had a really loving relationship with your mom and your dad, which is really
We were
beautiful.
tight. I think part of it, and I don't mean to say that people who have siblings don't have close relationships with their parents. I don't mean to say that. But I really had a very close relationship with both my mom and dad. I think in part because it was just the three of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's this complicates it. I won't go too much into depth. Of course, I love my parents. I'm grateful to them for my presence on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the same as your experience. So, and I think this may be hard for people sometimes. Cause we have responsibilities to our parents. You made me think of how quickly you guys just took her into the house with you, and I think if I remember right, your husband where's he from originally?
He's from Vietnam, but he's Chinese.
Yeah, and there, I mean, in those cultures, it's very normal to take care of the elderly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say too.
A lot of Asian families, Paul, even without a parent that's ill, do live, especially, I think it's more of a West Coast thing, that out in California, there's a large population of Asians.
Yeah.
And a lot of families live several generations in the home,
Yeah.
even before somebody's sick. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a cultural thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I mean it's complicated. I know some folks actually want to go to a nursing home because maybe they get some things there that they wouldn't get otherwise. But I think it's an interesting and maybe sad dynamic in a lot of American culture where the elderly are put into these homes. Now I know in many cases you reach a point and you have to because you can't, because the health has declined to such a degree that people are incapable of caring for them. But I think it's also partly a consequence of this kind of independent strain in American culture and the kind of breaking up of families. I think that kind of contributes to it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think it's a great example.
Well, let me bring something else up too, because there's a psychology to all of this where when you have aging parents, whether they're healthy or they're ill, especially when they start to lose their functioning and they're not able to live alone or live independently, it can bring up, if you've got siblings or even if you're an only child, I've found myself and talking to other people, it can bring up a lot of family dynamics, a lot of issues that are complicated. I don't want to make it sound like it's all a bed of roses, because it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of a blessing and a curse to go through all this, because there are beautiful, beautiful moments.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, there are some really difficult issues from your childhood, from your past, from your family that get magnified and get brought to the surface going through this kind of experience. It can really bring families together, and at the same time it can really pull families apart, because all the stuff from your childhood and your past can resurface.
Yeah, this is a great point. Great point.
So I don't want to talk to you about this and just make it sound like it was all like a bed of roses and beautiful. I mean, there were really beautiful moments, and at the same time there were really challenging moments too.
Sure, sure. So as her health shifted over time, were you working full time?
At the time, no, I was not. And to tell you what, it's a good thing, because if I had been, you have to understand, 2 or 3 days a week was chemo and radiation. The day after chemo, you have to go to the oncology office to get a shot. They give you a shot in your shoulder. That shot is to boost your white blood cell count, so that immediately following chemo, you're more susceptible to infection. You need that shot to prevent you from getting, because if you're a chemo patient with cancer and you get an infection, that could kill you.
Yeah.
So a good 3 days, sometimes 4 days a week, we were going to doctor appointments. If it wasn't cancer treatment, chemo or radiation, it was a shot or it was a scan. So much to deal with. It's a full-time job in and of itself, taking care of a cancer patient if you're the caretaker. There's no way I could have, if I would have been working, I'm pretty sure they would have let me go. So, yeah.
This is such a huge point, and people don't really realize it until they have to go through it. And, when people start losing their ability to do small tasks, you basically got to be with them all the time.
You do.
My heart goes out to families that have this situation and they don't have the resources to cover these things, because there's tremendous expenses and just time. Like you said, you couldn't have had a job.
No.
So if somebody's working and they have a parent that this happens to and they're trying to care for the parent, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how they'd have to hire. If somebody had to keep, which many people do, somebody had to keep their full-time job and care for their loved one as a primary caretaker, and they wanted to do both, they would have to hire skilled nursing to come into the home. Once things get bad, I will say on a daily basis.
Exactly.
There's no way you can do it, because at the end, the person, my mother at the end couldn't get in and out of bed to go to the bathroom. We had to lift her from the bed and take her to the bathroom. So there are some very basic physical needs that have to be met, and there's no way you can be working 8, 9, 10 hours a day and leave your loved one at home. It just doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Yeah, you reminded me of something else I wanted to ask you.
Well, you think about that. I wanted to bring up, too, there's the Family Medical Leave Act, but that, I don't know the specifics. It might be 8 weeks or 12 weeks or, 3-4 months, but that, someone can be sick for a year.
Yeah, that's nothing.
And need your care for way longer than what that Family Medical Leave Act covers. I mean, that's there, but that's not there for a year.
No. One thing that, because you're an only child, you didn't have to experience, but what I've heard, fortunately it hasn't really been the case in my family, but it's often said that the care of the parents often falls to one child. So for a variety of reasons, either, proximity or just only one child's willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot, Paul.
Yeah. So fortunately, I had my.
You have help with your mother. You mentioned you had a sister.
Yeah, my older sister, my oldest sister did this for like 7 years before I came to do it.
Wow.
And now she didn't live with Mom like I am, but she did a lot for her. She kept her from going off the rails, So
okay.
Because with my mom, there are like psychological quasi-dementia issues which have been going on for many, many years now. Mm-hmm. So even though she didn't have the health issues like your parents had, but she needed someone to make sure she wasn't, doing crazy things. So
yeah, that's hard. That's dementia, or your mental capacity diminishing.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I don't know which is worse, physical or mental. They're both difficult.
Yeah. I saw a piece yesterday on, I think it was, I don't know if it was the NewsHour or something, but they were talking about the cost of Alzheimer's and dementia-related illnesses to families, and basically it's this huge cost that doesn't get covered by anything. Mm-hmm. And it can go on, like you say, for years and years and years. So it's interesting.
You don't know how long it's going to go on. It could be a year. It could be 15 years. You don't know.
Exactly.
And the medical cost for this treatment that my mom went through, Paul, now this is back in 2008, 2009, I calculated it was around $15,000 a month.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane.
And if that goes on for a year or two, you add up that cost. That one shot I talked about, the one that she would get the day after her chemo, it took 5 minutes. We'd go in, she'd get the shot, we'd leave. We were in and out in 5 minutes. $4,000 for that one shot.
Yeah.
And that's going back, let me think, that's going back 6-7 years ago now.
This is how people go bankrupt,
Yes. Now, she had insurance coverage, but just think about that. If she hadn't had insurance coverage, first of all, I don't know if she would have been able to have gone to the office where we went. It was a really nice cancer treatment setup. There's places where they'll take you for cancer treatment that aren't nearly as nice. My mom had a really nice place where she went. I mean, as nice as you can make that.
Yeah.
But if she hadn't had that insurance, I don't know what the case would have been. But my point is, it's astronomical in terms of cost, and it really adds up to a lot of money.
Now, I'll tell you a challenge I have with my mom is that she is reluctant to admit she has a unrealistic idea of her own ability. So she still thinks she's capable of doing things which she's not capable of doing. Did you get any of that with your mom?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very common.
Yeah.
Because if they admit that they can't do things the way they used to, that I think internally I don't want to use the word failure, but if they admit that, then they're admitting that they're declining, and they're admitting that they're facing the end of their life, and I don't think they want to. I say they. Some people probably are okay with this. My mom did not want to admit that she was not capable of doing everyday life activities around the house the way she used to. I'll give you an example. One day, she was cooking in the kitchen. We have a gas stove.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was done cooking, she didn't turn the heat off. The fire was still on.
Yeah.
And I was just getting ready to go get a shower to take my daughter to an orthodontist appointment. And I noticed the stove was on, and I turned it off, and I said, look, this is really serious because, number one, you could get hurt. I have a pussy cat that jumps up.
Yeah.
The cat could have gotten burned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the house could have burned down.
Yeah.
So I said, it's not safe. She enjoyed cooking, and I said, but you're tired. Your thinking is not clear. Your judgment is off a bit. I don't think you should be cooking. Well, she didn't like that.
I bet she didn't.
Not like that. That discussion did not go very well. She said, well, I'll be sure to turn off the stove, and that'll never happen again. And I was just a little tired. But my point was, your days of cooking should now be over. But, you try telling someone that's something she enjoyed doing. So to tell her now you can't cook, that was hard. But she could have burned down the house.
So how did it turn out, Lisa? Did she keep cooking, or did you?
At that point, she didn't do much cooking after that. And really, at that point, she was going downhill.
Yeah.
So I think her desire to do certain things at that point was changing.
Okay.
Yeah. But you have to come to terms with that. She did, and I did.
Yeah.
And your roles, they switch. So now, instead of her being the mom and me being the child, she was the child and I was the mom toward the end. And that's not easy.
Oh, I know that dynamic so well. And because you're dealing with someone who's done these things all their lives, and they don't want to be directed.
No. And then you have to tell your parent, your aging loved one, that you're not going to allow, kind of like you'd tell a child, now you're not allowed to do that anymore. Well, just like a kid stomps off to the room and, doesn't like that they're being told what they can't do, well, that's how it is. Then you're the child telling your parent what they can no longer do. And I think you can envision how that goes, Paul.
Oh, I know exactly how that goes.
Not so well.
I do that pretty much every day.
It's difficult, is it not?
Oh, it's very hard. It's very hard. Because and what I get a lot is a kind of a knee-jerk temper about these kind of exchanges, and when this happens in public, it just complicates things.
Yes.
So if you're trying to get something done, and you have a discussion, and you're trying to get your parent to do something, and for some usually illogical reason they don't want to do it, at least in the case with my mom, and then it becomes an argument while people are in line, or it becomes a public event that's really inappropriate and uncomfortable.
And usually the people around you that see this event in public, they don't know what's going on. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I know for myself, I'd be in public. I can't think of any particular instances, but I'd be out in public and, I'd think to myself, most people don't know what I'm dealing with here. So to look at it as an outsider, you could pass a judgment, make a judgment on that,
Yeah.
not knowing what those people are really dealing with.
Exactly.
I mean, I learned a lot about not judging.
Yeah. That's a great point. So, as you started to kind of help your mom with bathing and going to the bathroom, I wonder if you could say something about that because I've been helping my mom in that respect with bathing, and at first, of course, she didn't want help, but she needed it. So it can be an embarrassing thing for them, but it's something you have to do. Was that the case with your mom?
Well, with my mom and my dad, the last week or two, my husband, because, they're both men, my husband would help him to the bathroom and assist him in the bathroom. And I think that was a great thing because my dad felt comfortable having a man help him to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So that worked out well. And then with my mom, it was amazing. She was really high functioning until the very, very end, where I remember it was late July, and she woke up one morning. I came downstairs and I saw her in the bedroom. She was crying. She was standing at her dresser, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I have a lot of pain." And my mom had a very high pain threshold her whole life. She just was not a person to complain. So for her to say she had a lot of pain meant things were really bad. So she told me, call the oncologist on duty. It was a Saturday morning. Call who's ever on call. I need to start. She knew she needed to start taking morphine.
Wow.
And when my mother knew. When you start taking morphine and charting the morphine, at that point, really, your days are numbered. We knew from my dad, when you start taking morphine and charting when you take your morphine, like it might be initially every 10 hours or 8 hours, and then it goes to every 6 hours, 4 hours. When you start charting that, pretty much you know that your days are numbered.
Wow. Does the morphine affect conscious behavior?
For my mom, when she was taking it for pain control, late July and early August, no, she was still functioning. Yeah. And then I would say the last week or two were what was really, really difficult. So until then, she was able to function and get around. And prior to all this, I want to say she loved gardening, like being outside in the yard. Might sound silly, but she liked to pull weeds. So she'd be outside in the sunshine, out in the yard, putzing around,
Good for her,
weeds and just, she told me if you ever see, because she was outside a lot, if you ever see a butterfly when I'm gone, that'll be me.
And, that's sweet.
So she was doing all this until the last few weeks. And then the last couple of weeks in particular, she just she really took a nosedive.
Wow.
So then at that point, the morphine was increased. And I'd have to really think about this. I know the last week for sure, she was in bed for the most part. And I became, we'll call it a wound care nurse, because she had a tumor at the area where her kidney was removed, at the right side there where your kidney is, the bed of the kidney. She had a tumor. It was very unusual that grew outside of her body.
Wow.
Usually it's with head and neck cancer. People have tumors that grow out. She had a tumor that was growing out of the bed of her kidney, and I would take the dressing off and clean it and put a new dressing on. That was really difficult to be a wound care nurse, but it's your loved one and you do it.
Yeah, totally.
So that was the hardest part toward the end, was taking care of this particular tumor, keeping her comfortable, and then the last, I don't know, it might have been 3 to 7 days that last week, getting her in and out of bed. It took my husband and I both to lift her out of bed. and we would have her on a chair, and then we would push the chair from the bedroom to the bathroom so she could use the bathroom. And then at that point, like trying to get her on and off the toilet, it's two issues. It's being able to lift. You have to have the physical strength to do it. And the main concern you have is that you might not be able to hold the person, and if they fall, they then could break a hip, or then you have another problem. So toward the end, it gets really complicated because you're trying to lift the person, and at the same time, you don't want to hurt yourself or them.
Yeah, a lot of people get injured lifting people. Yeah.
Yes.
You were lucky in a way that she still could go to the bathroom, and she wasn't having to go. You weren't having to. That's fortunate. But yeah, picking her up and carrying her, and then like, what if your husband wasn't around? I mean,
well, things came to a peak where it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was a weekend.
Okay.
And my mom knew her condition was deteriorating really rapidly. So she said, I want to go into, there's a hospice was coming into the house like once a day for an hour or so. They would bathe her, and they were helping us toward the end. But there's a hospice residence that you can go to live out your last however long, few days, week, a month, however long it is. She insisted that she wanted to go to the hospice home. And I said, no, I want you here at home with us. She said, no. My husband had to go to work. She said, you can't lift me alone. And I couldn't. It was getting to the point where I couldn't safely lift her alone for her and myself.
Yeah.
So she said, look, go up to the hospice home. It was about 45 minutes from our house. Let's pick a really nice room, and let's get me transferred over to the hospice home. So we went to visit, and now she didn't go. My husband and I went to see, and it was a beautiful place. We went there, and we decided as a family that we would have her transferred to the hospice home. We didn't like doing this because we knew her time was coming to an end.
Yeah.
But we all agreed that's what she wanted, and we wanted to abide by her wishes.
Right.
So that Monday, which was the 24th of August, an ambulance came to the house, and they had, they have a wheelchair. They get her onto the wheelchair, and then there's a lift. They put you on the lift, and they take you in the ambulance. And I'll never forget, we were going to follow the ambulance up to the hospice home, and she was in the ambulance. You could see her, and she just smiled and was waving. And my husband and my daughter and I were all there in the driveway. It was one of the saddest moments of my life. It was horrible.
Wow.
She knew she was never going to come back. We knew she was never going to come back.
Jeez, Lisa, that's intense. So she went to the hospice, and how many days did she last there?
So we got her situated. This was a Monday night. We got her situated. I remember she never lost her appetite. She never looked like a cancer patient. She always maintained her weight. I mean, it was amazing. Most cancer patients look thin and frail.
Yeah.
Not my mom. So she was sitting up having spaghetti and meatballs. Yeah, we got to her room. She was having spaghetti and meatballs and, having a real big meal.
Good for her.
But she said, hey, I want a bigger room. This room isn't big enough. So she was complaining she wanted a bigger room. So that evening, they got her ready we said goodnight. They got her ready for bed. But the next day, they did transfer her to a nice but larger room.
Wow.
That's what she wanted.
That's impressive. So in this hospice, you get a room to yourself.
Yeah, this you have your own private room. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a very nice hospice facility. Yeah, the room, it's a house, so it does not look like a hospital. It looks like it's a residential home, and
That's
each
great.
bedroom has like a different color and a different theme. And she was in a green room, but that was too tiny. So then they moved her to a peach-colored room, and that was really pretty.
Nice. So So I imagine you're spending quite a bit of time at the hospice.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the good things about this, that she was still coherent, is
Mm-hmm.
that
Oh, yeah.
she must have gotten all her affairs in order and told you exactly what she wanted for the funeral and that sort of thing. So that's good.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
she?
we had worked on it a long time, Paul, because back in the fall, after my dad had passed, she knew her time was limited, so she got all her affairs in order. And one of the things that we worked on was she wanted a really pretty headstone. So we would, it might sound weird, but we would walk around different cemeteries and look at headstones. And she told me like what kind of stone she wanted and what words she wanted inscribed. And what she has a real pretty biblical passage from Corinthians, love, love lasts, that
Yes.
passage, that particular passage, she had that inscribed on Love Never Ends, that inscribed on the back of the headstone. So we literally worked on that for like 6 months, and she wanted to see that before she passed, and she was able to see that before she died.
That's great.
So we got all of those things. That was one of the main things, and we did all that in the fall.
That's great. And so, how long was she at the hospice?
Not long at all. She went in on a Monday night. She was fine. She was coherent. Tuesday, I had to take my daughter to a couple of different things, and I said I'll be up later in the day. I want to take care of what her daughter had, these commitments. And I went up around dinner time, and I was shocked. She didn't look at all like she was just blank. She was not there. And I went over to the nurse on duty and I said, look, did you increase her meds? Because my mom doesn't look right at all. Have you heavily medicated her? I'd like to know if you've changed any of the medications. And the nurse said, no, we didn't change anything from what you were doing at home. We've kept everything the same. I said, well, something doesn't seem right to me. So I stayed with my mom until midnight. And she just was not talking. She was quiet. She just seemed different to me. And I started to make phone calls to her pastor and, my husband and some relatives. And I was torn about whether I should stay at hospice or whether I should go home and get some rest.
Yeah.
Well, the nurses reassured me, go home and get some rest. And if anything changes, of course, we'll call you immediately. So my mom even said, I said, it's about midnight. I think I might go home and sleep. And my mom did say, oh, it's that late. Yeah, go home and get some rest. So I just, gave her my usual good night. And I gave her a kiss, a hug and a kiss. And I said, I love you. And she looked right at me and she said, I love you too. So I walked out of the room. And when I walked out of the room, I looked back in the room. Her back was facing me, and I just for a moment hesitated. I paused and looked at her, and I thought, I wonder if I'm looking at my mom for the last time alive.
Mm.
And I didn't know. I was like, okay, the nurse is telling me to go home and rest. They'll call me immediately if anything takes a turn for the worse. I'm going to trust them. I went back and talked to the nurse again. I said, look, she doesn't look right to me. Please, if anything changes, call me immediately. I'm going to come back up here. So I drove home after the nurse reassured me they'd call immediately. And the whole time I'm driving home, I have this really weird feeling like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing here.
Mm.
Add to which, it was after midnight now, and it was August the 26th, which was my father's birthday.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think this is common, this kind of thing. Yeah.
So I get home, it's now about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I give my husband an update on everything that's going on, and he agreed. He said, yeah, just go to bed and, get a few hours of sleep and go back up in the morning. So no sooner do I go to sleep around 2:33 in the morning and the phone rings, and my mom had passed.
Wow.
Yeah. If I had known, Paul, of course, I would have stayed.
But Lisa, I mean, how could you know? And it's so beautiful. I mean, the last thing you said to each other was, "I love you." I mean,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And you all knew it was going to happen. I mean, yeah, man. And it sounds like it doesn't sound like she was afraid to go.
No, my mom was very spiritual. And when my dad passed, I would say that this grew exponentially. She was Catholic because she was married to my dad. She converted to Catholicism.
Yeah.
But she was a Protestant in her heart, and she returned to her Protestant roots after my dad died, and became very, very close with the people at that church. So her faith was strong, and
Good.
she told me in the last months of her life she was not afraid to die. She was ready.
That's
so
great.
I knew she was at peace, and for her, she knew she was going to heaven, and she knew she was going to be reunited with my dad, and she knew she was going to be with Jesus and to be with God, so there was no fear there. She was really ready to go. She was not afraid to die.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And then for you, after she passed, it fell to you to take care of the house. That is, I think, can be an emotional experience.
Well, you know what we did, Paul? We put it off for 2 years.
Yeah.
Talk about, and I want to tell you, this is like, I'm a therapist, so I look back now, when you're going through it, you're kind of in the forest, you don't see the trees.
Yeah.
But I look back now and I know, classic avoidance. I didn't want to get rid of that house for several reasons. That would be admitting on a very deep emotional level that part of my life was over. The last physical, tangible thing I had was that house.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give it up.
Yeah.
So reluctantly, eventually, we did clean through it. And I'll be honest with you, my husband did most of the work because it was too painful for me, emotionally, too painful for me. The last month, I helped him clean through it. He did the bulk of the work because he'd be cleaning, and I'd be reading stuff. I'd come across something sentimental.
Yeah, this is not something you rush through.
No.
Yeah. Everything you pick up is gonna elicit a lot of feeling. Yeah. That's intense.
So the last night before the house was sold and we went to close, went to settlement with the couple that was buying the home, I did this, we'll call it a ritual or a ceremony. I went through each room of the house and I lit some incense. And I sat there and I kind of meditated and prayed. And my prayer was that for the next person that inhabited the home, that it be a happy, healthy, peaceful, loving place for them, and that the home would bring them joy.
That is so beautiful, Lisa. That is so sweet. I love
My
that.
husband, now this is 2 in the morning, he had to go to work the next day. He sat in the car. Well, I said it's going to be probably an hour for me to go through each room. And I took about 5 or 10 minutes in each room. And then when I was done, I closed the door and came out to the car and I said, now I can let go.
What a beautiful thing. I mean, kind of for your mom, for you, and then for the people that were going to live there. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I kind of passed over, but your dad had worn the Cardinals uniform. How did you do your mom's funeral? Was that
she wanted the opposite.
She wanted formal.
She wanted to be cremated.
Oh, okay, right,
My
okay.
dad wanted the traditional funeral with the open casket and the Catholic Mass and everything.
Yeah.
My mom wanted to be cremated. She wanted no viewing. She wanted a memorial service, but she didn't want an open casket. She didn't want that. She didn't want a lot of attention on that aspect she did want a memorial service, and I knew what she wanted, so we did. Really, I have to tell you, her memorial service was beautiful. I had a woman who has just a phenomenal voice, and she sang one of my mom's favorite hymns, and it was done beautifully. It was breathtaking, and we also had one of her favorite flowers was the sunflower, so we had sunflowers just everywhere.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite a story, Lisa. It's pretty intense. I guess, most kids have to go through something along these lines. And,
Yeah.
But the
We don't,
caretaker.
we don't like to think about it, but most people will face this at some point in their lifetime, and it'll be, like I said, it'll be difficult and challenging, and it also will probably leave some of the sweetest memories you could ever have.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with life and death here, and
Yeah.
it's going to precipitate these extreme. I mean, these are people you've been with so many years, and you're so close to, and they're leaving. Yeah, it's very. What can you say? Just a
It's
big part.
overwhelming. I mean, I can tell just now, you and I talking. It's the emotions are so overwhelming. It's really hard to put it into words. You really can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel for people that are going through this. I have a friend. Her father died a week ago, and she was the primary caretaker for her father. And I probably am hoping to connect with her later today to talk to her. I live in Pennsylvania. She lives in New Jersey. And I just, I feel for her because it's so raw.
Yeah. Yeah, that immediate aftermath is, I think people are just kind of in a different world. It's like surreal or something, Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it's hard, Paul. Now, I want to know, do you have another sibling, or is it just you and your sister?
No, I have 4 sisters.
4. Wow.
Yeah.
No brothers.
No brothers. Yeah. So, and they help. As I said, my oldest sister did the lion's share of this for a long time, and she still does, like, my mom's accounting for her and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have 2 other sisters who occasionally help me. They both have a lot of work commitments, and my younger sister has 3 boys who are like at young ages, so she's got a lot to do with it. Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. So and I was in a place where I didn't really have anything lined up, so it was okay for me to come back here, and I had felt guilty because my older sister had been doing the lion's share of this, so.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've been doing it like 3 years, and it kind of came to a head this summer because it's very difficult. There are issues with my mom which are complicated. She is it's more psychological than physical. But yeah, so I've reached a point where I'm still going to be with her, but we're going to hire someone that will be here, some of the time. That'll let me get a job, and because, like you said, I was doing this pretty much full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell you, most people at some point, you have to get some kind of outside help.
Yeah.
Because you want what's best for your loved one, and at the same time, you also need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'll just tell you, when I came out of taking care of my dad for that brief period of time and my mom for that almost year, I was in pretty bad shape physically, Paul.
Yeah.
It really took a toll on me. My weight was up. My blood pressure was sky high. I wasn't taking care of myself, and I knew. My mom said to me, when I pass, you need to promise me you're going to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So it can really take a toll on the caretaker. Sometimes the caretaker can get sick as a result of all the stress.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, I think it's good. It's time to have a transition, and so I'm interviewing people, and that's a whole nother ball game. Is finding someone you can trust.
Yes.
And that'll be interesting. But it'll probably be good for her to have someone else to interact with and bring a little different energy into the house. That'll be good. So yeah,
it's hard when it's your parent and you can butt heads, and I think it's nice to have some outside, a fresh perspective, somebody else for you, for your loved one. It's good to have that outside help.
Yeah, definitely.
If you can afford it and you can get the right person, I think that's going to be good for you and your mom.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
I feel for you.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I'm sure many people have it worse than I do, but it's been it's a learning experience. It's my karma, I think. It's a blessing to be able to return what my mother did. My mother brought me into the world, and so I think it's a opportunity to kind of repay that to some degree. Mm-hmm. So that in that respect, it's good, but it can be very challenging, very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that very much.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, it's
well, I appreciate you wanting to talk about this. This is near and dear to my heart, and maybe we can do another one in the future. I won't get into it in this interview, but now my husband's parents are aging, and that's kind of the next thing that we'll be facing and dealing with. And that's a different ball of wax because they don't speak English.
Do they live near you guys?
They live about 45 minutes to an hour away.
Okay.
But they're getting to the point they're declining in their health.
Yeah.
So we're faced with, facing that challenge, and it's complicated. We just take it day by day, week by week, month by month, and we're not sure where that's going to end up, Paul, what we're going to do. I had actually offered when my parents passed and I didn't sell that house. We held on to it for a couple of years. I had actually offered for them to move into it because then they would have been really close.
That was smart. That was smart.
They didn't want to move.
Yeah. That would have been perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
so I guess the story is to be continued.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to hear about it. So see how it turns out. So one thing I was going to ask you. I know that to some degree your explorations in nutrition have had a beneficial effect on your husband. Have you been at all trying to convince his parents to espouse some of these principles?
They're not going to change.
Okay.
No, that's not going to. I mean, first of all, there's the language barrier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, his dad speaks no English. If
Gotcha.
I have a conversation with him, my husband has to interpret.
Okay.
His mother understands a little, but their view of nutrition. Now, his mom's pretty good. His mom does not do red meat. When she was little, she saw a cow tied to a post, and it was going to be slaughtered, and it was crying.
Oh, wow.
There were tears. The cow, she insists, the cow was crying. She was young. She might have been, 10 years old or so. She never, after that, she didn't eat red meat.
Impressive.
She's a smart woman.
Yeah.
I like her.
Yeah.
She and I, we have even though there's a language barrier, we have a connection. Mm-hmm. And she probably knows more than most people in that culture and in that generation. So I'm not going to change them really. But my husband's family, they do pick my brain a little.
Oh, good.
And I'm having a little bit of an influence on his siblings.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
All right.
That's interesting, but unfortunately, most of them live in California, and I don't see them that often. But when we do have the chance to talk, they take me seriously, so I like that.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Lisa, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. I mean, it's a beautiful energy comes off of
Oh,
you.
Paul, I really like you.
Yeah,
I love our talks.
yeah. So
Sorry,
thank.
sorry it took so long to organize this. Things have been really busy for me, but
Not
good
at all.
busy.
Not
Yeah.
at all. I'm so glad you could fit it in. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for taking the time to interview me.
Yeah.
And I wish you well with bringing someone into the home to help you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering, do you mind if I post this? I guess I can post this on the vegan channel. I don't really have a channel, expressly devoted to these issues. So I guess I'll just
feel free to edit whatever you want and to go ahead and post it however you see fit. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think your experience can be educational for people. It can help people, to know, kind of have an idea of what they may be in for.
Well, I want people to know a couple things. I want them to know that it's going to be very, very difficult. Challenging is probably the better word to use, more positive. But at the same time, if you take this on, you're going to really, in the end, you will never have any regrets. You will feel at the end you did everything humanly possible, and you will feel good because you'll walk away from that having some really sweet memories. Yeah.
I like that. Coming away knowing you did everything you could. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to live my life with any regret. If I can, sometimes you do have some regrets in life, unavoidable, but that was hands down the best decision that we could have made with my mom. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. All right, Lisa. Well, you take care of yourself.
You too.
Stay warm up there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you're in Virginia, right?
That's right.
Is it warm or cold?
It's finally just gotten cooler. We had a beautiful few weeks of incredible color. I'm up here on a mountain, so
Nice.
we probably get the color.
Are you in the Shenandoahs?
That's right.
Oh, beautiful.
We're about an hour from Charlottesville.
Okay, it's pretty down there. I like it.
Yeah. So you're probably getting some fall color up there too, right?
Yeah, it's getting chilly, and I'm a summer gal.
Yeah. I kind of like the heat myself. So we actually had a fire. We had a fire last night.
I California this winter for just like 3 days.
Totally. Yeah. All right. Well, take care, Lisa. And let's
You too.
we'll put on the back burner that perhaps we'll do this again when we have.
Yeah, you let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Take care, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Nice talking. Bye.
Real pleasure.